The bar was alive with noise, the low hum of conversation, the clatter of pool balls, and the occasional pop of a beer bottle being cracked open. The jukebox in the corner played a classic country tune, its soft twang almost lost beneath the rowdy laughter near the bar. Walter Walt. Grayson sat alone at the counter, his posture relaxed but upright, nursing a whiskey. 68 years old, lean, calm, unreadable. His weathered hands rested lightly around his glass, and he watched the room without really watching. Then the front door swung open. Mitch Big Dog Jensen made his entrance. Loud, cocky, already halfway drunk, he stomped inside like he owned the place. 6'4", built like a bulldozer, arms covered in faded tattoos that told stories he never actually lived. All right, make some damn room," Mitch barked, slamming his fist against the bar as he swaggered forward. His voice boomed over the crowd, demanding attention. His usual posse laughed too hard, eager to ride his wave. Walt didn't look up, didn't flinch, didn't react. That was mistake number one. Mitch noticed him and grinned. He leaned toward his closest drinking buddy, nodding toward Walt. "Look at this guy, been sitting here all night, quiet as a damn church mouse. Bet he ain't got a damn thing to say." His buddy chuckled. "Maybe he's scared to talk." Mitch smirked. "Scared? Hell, he looks like he's scared of his own shadow." A few heads turned. Some of the older bar regulars exchanged knowing glances. They knew exactly who Walt was, and more importantly, they knew exactly what was about to happen. Mitch didn't. He pushed himself off the bar, stepping closer, towering over Walt's seat. "Hey, old man, you afraid to speak?" Walt took another slow sip of his whiskey. Didn't say a word. Mitch's grin widened. "Oh, I see how it is. You the quiet type, huh? Bet you were one of those guys who avoided fights your whole life. Maybe you should have grown a spine instead of a beer gut." Still, Walt didn't react. He simply set his glass down, calm, precise. Mitch chuckled, but now there was a hint of irritation beneath it. He wasn't used to being ignored. He clapped a heavy hand onto Walt's shoulder, just enough force to test him. "Come on, tough guy, you got nothing to say? Or are you just—" Walt's voice cut through the noise. Even, steady, cold. "Son, I've seen real fear. You don't qualify." The bar went silent. Mitch's grin faltered. Someone near the jukebox muttered, "Oh, hell." Mitch forced a laugh, but his eyes flashed with something else now. "Yeah? You saying I wouldn't last in a fight?" Walt finally looked at him. His eyes, sharp, calculating, predatory, locked onto Mitch's for the first time. "I'm saying you wouldn't last against the right man." The tension spiked. The bartender Maggie sighed. "Mitch, don't do this." Mitch's face darkened. His pride was on the line now. "All right then, tough guy, let's see what you got." Walt exhaled, slow and controlled, picked up his whiskey, finished it, set the empty glass down. "All right, kid, just remember, you asked for this." Mitch grinned wide, cracking his knuckles. Yeah, this'll be fun." The bar braced for impact. They all knew something Mitch didn't. This was about to get real ugly, for him. The bar was dead silent now. Eyes flicked between Mitch and Walt, waiting. Some leaned forward, others exchanged quick knowing glances. They'd seen bar fights before, but this wasn't going to be a fight. This was going to be a lesson. Mitch cracked his knuckles, stretching his thick neck side to side. He was loving this. This was his moment. "All right, old man, here's how this works," Mitch said, rolling his shoulders. "You throw the first shot. If you can even land one, I'll buy you a drink." Walt sat motionless. Mitch smirked. "No? All right, then I'll go first." He reached out, aiming to shove Walt back against the bar. And that was mistake number 2. Walt moved first. Not away, not back. Forward. A sharp step in, sudden, precise, controlled. Before Mitch could react, Walt's hand clamped onto his wrist. Tight, unshakable, absolute. Mitch barely had a second to process it before. Snap, twist, pivot. In the blink of an eye, Mitch's entire arm was torqued backward. His massive frame whipped around as his own weight betrayed him. And then, boom. His body slammed into the bar, hard. His beer bottle tipped over, spilling onto the counter. A chair scraped as someone jumped out of the way. Mitch gasped, his chest pinned against the wood. His wrist twisted painfully behind his back. He tried to move, but he couldn't. Walt had him locked down completely, like he'd done this 1,000 times before, because he had. The bar let out a collective gasp. Someone whistled low. A biker near the jukebox muttered, "Well, shh." Mitch struggled, his muscles bulging, his face red. "The hell?" Walt leaned in slightly, his voice calm, controlled, absolute. "You ever put your hands on someone without thinking what happens next?" Mitch grunted, shaking from exertion, but the harder he fought, the worse the pain in his wrist got. "Let me go," Mitch growled. "That what you want?" Walt asked, voice casual. "All right." And just like that, he let go. Mitch stumbled back, catching himself on the bar, his face flushed with fury and confusion. His eyes darted around the room, scanning for support, validation, something. Nothing. Not a single person was on his side. Even his own drinking buddies weren't laughing anymore. Ethan, a trucker near the door, shook his head. "Damn, big dog, you got handled like a house pet." A ripple of laughter spread through the bar. Mitch swung around, fists clenched, face burning. "That was cheap." "Was it?" Walt interrupted, still seated, still completely unbothered. Mitch's breath hitched. He opened his mouth to fire back, but he had nothing, because deep down, he knew. That wasn't luck, that was skill. A lifetime of training, experience, and precision. Maggie, the bartender, shook her head and grabbed a rag, wiping up the spilled beer. "Mitch, you should probably quit while you're behind." Mitch's jaw ticked. His pride screamed at him to do something, but his body didn't move. Because now, he wasn't so sure he wanted to. And Walt? He just picked up his empty glass, turning it between his fingers. Like nothing had happened, like Mitch was already forgotten. The humiliation was worse than the takedown. Mitch gritted his teeth, but this time, he stayed quiet. Mitch stood frozen, fists clenched, his breath coming hard and fast. His massive frame loomed over Walt, but the weight in the room had shifted. Nobody saw Mitch as the biggest guy in the bar anymore. They saw the guy who got handled like a rookie. And Walt? He just sat there, calm as ever, his empty whiskey glass resting on the counter. Maggie sighed, tossing the bar rag over her shoulder. "Mitch, you're embarrassing yourself." Mitch's face burned. He stopped himself, glancing around. Every eye was on him now, not in the way he was used to, not with respect, with pity. A trucker near the jukebox smirked. "Thought you were about to teach him a lesson, big dog?" Laughter rippled through the bar. Mitch's hands shook. His ego screamed at him to do something, anything to take control back. So he did the only thing he knew. He lashed out. With zero warning, Mitch swung, fast, heavy, all brute force. A straight punch, meant to put Walt down in one hit. Another mistake. Before the punch could land, Walt moved. A slight shift. A half step to the left. One precise grab. Mitch's wrist caught mid-swing. A sharp twist, a pivot, a brutal yank. And suddenly, Mitch was airborne. His own momentum, his own strength turned against him. The next thing he knew, boom, his back hit the bar stool, flipping it over. His knees buckled, his head cracked against the floor. A beer glass shattered nearby. The entire bar winced. Mitch lay flat on the ground, gasping, staring at the ceiling. For a full 3 seconds, the bar was dead silent. Then, "Jesus," someone whispered. Another chuckle. "Hell, that was beautiful." The laughter started slow, then spread. Full-blown, unapologetic, roaring laughter. A biker near the bar slammed his hand on the counter, wheezing. "Mitch, man, hell, that was worse than the first time." Maggie smirked. "Didn't I tell you to quit while you were behind?" Mitch groaned, rolling onto his side, chest heaving. He wasn't hurt, not physically, but his pride, it had just been obliterated. He staggered to his feet, face red, jaw clenched. He shot a glare at Walt, but there was no fight left in his eyes. Walt just raised an eyebrow. "Still want to try again?" Mitch hesitated, his breathing hitched. For the first time in his life, he felt small. The realization hit him like a freight train. He couldn't win this, not with his fists, not with his size, not against someone who had actually fought real battles. So he did the only thing left. He stormed toward the door, didn't look back, didn't say a word. The second the door slammed shut behind him, Someone at the bar let out a low whistle. "Well," the trucker near the jukebox said, "guess Big Dog just turned into a stray." Another roar of laughter. The tension was gone. The moment had passed. And Walt? He just picked up his empty whiskey glass, giving it a small tap on the counter. "Think I'll take that refill now, Maggie." She chuckled, grabbing the bottle. "You earned it." 10 minutes later, the bar had settled back to normal. The bikers were back to their drinks. The truckers had returned to their pool games. But near the end of the bar, a younger man, maybe mid-20s, hesitated before speaking. "Sir," he said quietly, his voice tinged with hesitation, "that was incredible." Walt glanced at him. "What was—" The young man swallowed. "The way you handled that guy. I mean, I've seen fights before, but that wasn't a fight. That was just—" He shook his head. "Something else." Walt smirked. "Son, there's a difference between knowing how to fight and knowing when you don't have to." The kid hesitated, then took a deep breath. "Would you teach me?" Walt studied him for a moment. Then he nodded toward an empty stool. "Sit down, kid. Let's talk." The next day, a video hit social media. Not one of Mitch getting humiliated, not one of a fight, but one of an old man sitting at the bar talking to a young kid, teaching him something valuable. The caption? "Real strength isn't about winning fights. It's about knowing when you don't need to." And just like that, the story wasn't about a loudmouth getting humbled anymore. It was about a veteran passing down real wisdom. And Walt, he just kept drinking his whiskey, like nothing ever happened.